You're listening to the Oracle Talk Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Carpenter.
I'm Dasha.
Hey, I'm Billie Eilish.
What's up, guys? I'm Camila Cabello.
Hey, this is Tate McRae.
I love this station.
I love this station.
You're listening to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. On the Oracle Talk Radio Network. Broadcasting live in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
If it's unexplainable, we're talking about it.
Whether you're a believer or a skeptic,
we cover everything where the unknown becomes the known.
And now, here are your hosts, Jenny Nicasio and Tom Callway.
Again, so we're broadcasting on multiple platforms. So if you have an inkling to having a podcast, as long as you know how to talk and like to talk and gab, and we would love to have you on our platform. You don't have to have any experience. We have 4 new shows starting in June. I'm excited about it. But while we wait for Krys to get set up, I just want to let you know he's really cool. He's a cosmic frequency Starwalker. So this is going to be cool. He's a soul guide teacher. It's going to be a cool show. But while we wait for him, I had some crazy things happen to me the last couple of days. Now, Holly, you might understand this. I had a dream the other night and of a man. Hi, John. Are you coming on? I wasn't sure. You want to come on? I will get you that link. I had some really crazy stuff happen to me. I had a dream about this man. Okay. I'm going to get John. I'm going to get John a link. Let me get him a link. And it was really weird because I saw him so clearly that it kind of freaked me out. And you're not going to believe what happened. And I saw this man in the giant eagle yesterday. Now, he looked at me. I looked at him. And it was so freaking bizarre. I wanted to say something. And it was like he wanted to say something. I said, oh, my God, did we just meet in a different dimension or something? And I don't know if any of you ever had anything like that happen to you, but it was freaky as all. It was so creepy. I can't tell you how creepy it was. And wait a minute, I'm coming on. I'm giving that to you. So it was a creepy thing. So what do you guys think it was? Do you think that we were in a different dimension or what? Anybody? Anyone want to chime in? It was just really weird. It was like so clear and so bizarre. And then that totally blew my mind. And then today, everybody knows my dog, she's pretty sick. She has a tumor and she's a memory tumor. And it's huge. And we were thinking, this is probably going to be your last couple weeks. And I was out in my backyard today. I was on the swing and I said, go for a walk. Now, my whole fence is locked in. My yard is locked in with a huge fence. My son lives up, he bought the lot next to me and he's building a home and he has chickens up there. Okay. I'm sitting on the swing and I hear the chickens going crazy. The chickens are going crazy. Okay. So I'm listening to the ducks. He has ducks. He has 2 ducks and he has like 4 chickens. They're going crazy. And I'm just sitting there. And then all of a sudden I said, where's my dog? Where's Ava? So I'm looking around the yard. I don't see Ava. Then they had to cut a couple trees down beyond our fence. And all of a sudden I see my dog next door on the second lot. Okay. And believe it's right next to the road. And she's never, ever done that. She's a very reactive German Shepherd. And she's not feeling well. And I told her to go for a walk. She literally went for a walk because my son left the gate open. I didn't think I have back issues. Okay. I literally sprinted up the lot going through the gate and it's all mud. And I slid in the mud to get my German Shepherd dog. And I'm telling you what, I was shaking so bad. I thought my head was going to blow up because I thought I was going to have a stroke. But this has been a freaking crazy week. And I'm thinking, is there a full moon? And I know there isn't. And isn't the full moon next week? So my dog's never left the yard. And I'm like, she actually listened to me when I said go for a walk. She took it literally and went for a walk. But I didn't think I had it in me to actually run. Hi, John. I didn't think I could actually run with this back. I'm not that young. I'm 62 years old. I'm like, what the hell?
I'm glad I didn't take my jet ski into Pittsburgh today. I had it all hooked up and then I unhooked it. Squirrel Hill Tunnel is one lane in each direction for the next 2 years.
Why?
Trump flew into they're building that bridge thing that they got to replace. And Trump flew into Pittsburgh today. So I couldn't have got on the river anyhow because the Coast Guard wouldn't let you go down.
Oh, my God. He's in Pittsburgh.
I'm glad I didn't go. Glad I didn't go.
I didn't know he was here. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, he went to U.S. Steel. But whatever.
Wow.
But Squirrel Hill, forget about going to Pittsburgh for the next 2 years.
No, I won't be going. I feel bad for people who like to go to the game, Power game.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. Hi, Krys.
Greetings. Hi, John. Hi, Jenny. I was actually born in Pittsburgh. I played college football at Pitt.
Oh, okay.
Really? That's cool. That's neat. That's really cool.
I got the University of Pittsburgh campus behind my house here in Greensburg. I can see it from my yard.
That's awesome.
That's
the
so awesome, Krys.
What was that?
Can you see the cathedral?
I can see the parking lot and the entrance to the campus, but I'm talking about the Greensburg campus, not the main.
Okay.
He's in the
the Greensburg campus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So let me go ahead and read this. I was muted there for a while. I've been having some issues with my haunted studio. Nothing. It's crazy. This room is weird, but we have a really cool guest.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, good. I hope so. So we're welcoming Krys from Cosmic Frequency. He's a Starwalker, soul guide, teacher, physics. I'm not sure if I said that right. Krys isn't just talking about ET, okay? Contact, he's lived it. Okay, Kurt. And from being taken aboard starships as a child to monitoring thousands and unlocking their true cosmic identity, Krys reveals what the mainstream won't tell us about ET connection. And is it human? I don't know. We'll find out. So Krys, there's a line between what makes someone an ET and a human is very thin. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very thin. It's almost like, if you go to Pittsburgh in Ohio, can you show me in the ground where the line becomes Pittsburgh, and if you cross it, then it's Ohio? It doesn't exist, right? That's just a concept that we made up. Even though they're bordering states, we know that it's really just one mass. So ET and human, it's the same thing. It's a matter of consciousness versus physical location and or physical appearance. So, what makes someone an extraterrestrial is really their how developed they are in their mind, in their awareness. So it's a very fine line.
Krys, are you saying the ET is interdimensional and spiritual, or is it a physical being like a human?
All of it. So I would even say humans are interdimensional and spiritual. The thing is, most humans don't know how to utilize those functions of their consciousness, right? Okay. So something that I think is very, it's hidden under the radar is dreaming. That's an interdimensional experience that we have every single night, whether we remember it or not. So in essence, it comes down to reframing what we truly are, besides the flesh that we think we see when we look in the mirror. So there's so much more to reality and then, the paranormal than traditional New Age communities will share.
Hey, Krys, I got a question with that dreaming. Mm-hmm. I live next to a cemetery, and my house is kind of haunted. They come and go. I've learned to reason with them to leave rather than command them in the name of Jesus. But I made the comment or the thought a while ago that how do I know when I'm sleeping they don't lay inside my body, and this way they feel alive? They feel breathing and heat and all of that. I mean, what do they do that? And maybe the dream is their thoughts in my head.
Well, so you can think of reality as like a frequency soup, right? So let's say you make a vegetable soup. You have your carrots, onions and potatoes, then you put the water, and it's all in the same bowl, right? But we eat it and we say that's the soup. But within that soup are differentiated aspects, the onions and the carrots and potatoes, right? But they all are interchanging in the same pot. So when we're talking about entities or ghosts, what is needed here is a fundamental reframing of reality, which is based in frequency. So your vibration, John, in their vibration, the reason you can't see the ghost or the entity is because it's at a subtle different rate of oscillation than your body. Okay. So it gets tricky because yes, they could be tapping into your consciousness, but at the same time, it's not always like that, right? There are beings that use invasive telepathy, and there are beings who use telepathy for very benevolent and peaceful interactions. For example, if you ever thought of a friend and then they text you, that's telepathy, right? So that's you tapping into their field and them responding. So it varies on it varies based on where their soul is and where their consciousness is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But what about, I'm more into the UFO field, and there's a lot of, alien abductions and where the people claim the fetuses take. I mean, this is some physical things. I know there are other people that say that none of that ever happened. That's all in the person's head because that's where the abduction takes place. But it's not a physical thing because it's interdimensional. But there are people who claim that this was physical. They were awake. It was there. Yeah. They were taken. They're on Travis Walton's a good friend of mine. I mean, he was on that ship and he was dropped off at that phone booth. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
ETs, extraterrestrials, are very real. They're just as physical as us. I think one of the misconceptions that Jenny was alluding to that the New Age doesn't talk about is how real and really earthy ETs really are. There's this propaganda that puts extraterrestrials as these light orbs that just kind of float around. That is not true at all. The physicality doesn't just stop on planet Earth. It is a universal phenomenon that has more to do with one's perception versus what planet you're on. So I have no doubt, because I've experienced it myself, that people have been on board starships, whether they're just through astral or dream space or physical, they both happen. And the reason that a lot of people get abducted is because they have agreements to help further their spiritual mission on Earth. And unfortunately on Earth, well, now that cosmic frequency is here, now it is fortunate, but traditionally there isn't education around this kind of stuff. So it does leave people feeling ostracized and in the dark. But that's why I'm here to help kind of enlighten and bring forth a different syntax to these phenomena. So it's very physical. Yeah. I could keep going, but
what? No. Let me ask you something. Okay. When we have dreams, so you do believe that dreaming is a state of a different dimension to when we go to sleep or in a different world or not? And is that connected to the universe, meaning other portals and other dimensions?
Yes. So it's all connected. So I'm going to answer this through an analogy. Let's say you and John are going for a walk in the woods, right? Somewhere downtown. I don't know. And I guess there's no woods downtown, but you're going for a walk in the woods, and the woods is huge. It's massive, but you're just sitting next to the water and you're having a good old time. You stand up and you go a couple miles deeper into the woods and it looks completely different. Would you say you're in a different dimension, or are you now experiencing just more of what was already there that you couldn't see at the time? You see? So it's not like you went into two different wooded areas. You're in the same woodlands. You just are at different places in it. So dimensions operate the same way. Dimensions are states of mind. So when you go to sleep, what happens is your brain shifts brainwaves and it goes to a completely different mode of thinking. Your logical centers kind of shut down or go to rest for the most part. and your creativity, your imagination come online. And that's why your dreams sometimes seem very kind of abstract, because there's no logic or reason. So you do enter different dimensions all the time, but dimensions are not like external to you. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's how much can you translate of the forest in that way, right? Some people can only see this much of themselves, but they don't see any of this. The second you start to see yourself as this, then you say, oh, I went into a different dimension. It's like, no, you've just explored a deeper aspect of you.
That's interesting. So where do supernatural and paranormal beings come from? Are they coming from a different dimension, or are they coming through our thought processes? Like, do we manifest them, or are they actually real?
They're definitely real. Whether they're manifested or not, whether they're egregors or tulpas, which is just a fancy word for a thought form manifest, right? Interdimensional beings, you could say, are people, let me just say this, people who understand more of the broader spectrum of reality, right? Sasquatch is interdimensional, but he's very, very physical. But he understands how to operate in a non-linear framework, right? So extraterrestrials, people who are flying around starships, they're very physical. I'm sure, if you're sensitive enough, you probably have walked past one, drive around Pittsburgh or in a grocery store, you would never know. Because they're just people like us. And that's what people forget, is like, they are people. They're real flesh and blood people with high advanced technology and essentially more ethos and spiritual maturity than the traditional earthling. Not all of us are, a-holes, to say the least.
So why doesn't the physical ET announce itself? The government's going through this mumbo, and I don't believe a word they say because they're saying. But why doesn't the ET just show up, show themselves?
Well, if you were someone who only thought that fire was the only way to light your house, right? That's it. And then you're sitting there in your living room, you light your fire, having your cup of coffee, good old time. And then literally unannounced, no invitation, out of nowhere, someone comes in with a huge flashlight or a lamp, right? At first, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's going to throw you off a little bit. The ETs, the benevolent races who are in orbit right now and in some ways interfacing through and here on planet as starseeds, they can't and won't show up because it's up to people on Earth to mature in order to be a part of a more advanced civilization, right? Now, if you take candy away from a baby, it's gonna cry, right?
Right.
So if you take people's vices and addictions, whether it's harmful addictions, I don't know, watching movies or whatever, if you strip away what people think reality is, they're gonna lose it. So people have to mature consciously before they can experience that next tier of contact. That's why they can't just drop down and be like, hey, we're here, because no one would. It'd be hard for the masses to accept it right now. That's why it's my job and people like you and others' job to educate people on, interstellar or cosmological principles so that we can have that face-to-face interaction.
Do you think the abduction is a demonic infestation like the Nephilim, where they take the fetus? Or do you actually think that these are ETs that come in and take samples and do all the things that people say they do?
It's both. It's definitely both. Yeah, it's both. Star Wars, they say powerful light, powerful darkness, right? So, the best thing that people can do is worry about their own harmonic, their own frequency, right? How in tune are they with their own consciousness? Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be completely immune, but it means that you'll have your own constitution within yourself and your ability to face, less desirable situations. But whether it's the regressive factions of extraterrestrials or aliens, or the benevolent, it all happens, and they do it for different reasons. A lot of people get abducted because, man, it gets so complex. Time's not linear. I'm just gonna go here. I know we're kind of jumping around, but some people get abducted because in a different time sphere or timeline, they are needed to be a part of some council or some sort of event. And so they will get abducted here in order to help prepare them for that. And that's a whole other topic, but I think it's definitely both, John. Yeah.
Okay.
Krys.
Let me ask one more thing, Jen. How do you protect yourself? Let's say I don't want anything to do with ETs. I don't want anything to do with interdimensional beings. How does someone protect themselves or repel intruders?
It's all about one. You have to know yourself. That's the key thing. If you don't have control over your own mind, if you don't know your own morals and ethics, then your fears, your anxieties, your depressions will be used against you. So what the dark side likes to do is they like to use your weak spots against you. So it reminds me of a movie I watched a long time ago, 8 Mile with Eminem, and he was doing a rap battle, and he said all the bad stuff about himself so that no one else would have any ammo to use against him.
Right.
So it's that kind of a principle. It's like, what are my weaknesses? Let me accept that, honor myself, love myself through that, right? Face those things within myself. That strengthens your aura, that strengthens your vibration. It also gives you confidence to step forth in any kind of challenge. Apart from that, what is your everyday morals? What are you doing every day? You know, are you smoking? Are you drinking? Are you getting into things that make you feel awful? That's going to make you a frequency match for these lower astral entities. But the opposite is true. If you are getting out in nature, attuning to your own thoughts, doing your best to eat healthy, it's hard on this planet, I know. You're going to attract and be in position with other beings and people who are in that same field of thought. So protection is really about you managing your own frequency. And then when and if something shows up that is less than desirable, having the courage to face it. You can use different sigils. Magic is very real. Frequency, different sounds. There's so many different ways.
Do you think that, let's say, a religious person who truly believes can call upon Jesus to repel these entities? Do you believe that whole ritual type thing, that if you drop his name, Jesus Christ commands you to leave? If you do that, that it would, if you believe that it actually works, and that's a way to drive it out. Because he would be in charge of everything.
Well, let's look at it like this. Coming at it from an ether physicist point of view, everything is consciousness and frequency. So whether you say in the name of Jesus or in the name of grasshopper, as long as you have that conviction, that inner knowing and confidence, that is what sets your field. That is what protects you. It's not the name or the deity. That's what people forget. People believe so much in an external force that they forget their own inner divinity. It's not so much the Jesus or the Buddha or the Krishna or the grasshopper. It's you. You're the one commanding your field. So command your field with confidence. And, for me, I personally, I work with my star family. I work with different, like I said, Sasquatch, but it's not coming from a place of like, I need them to protect me. It's coming from a place of equality in spirituality, stepping up to the plate as my own sovereign being and understanding that they're doing the same. And if I need assistance, I can say, hey, can you help me out with this? If I need it, but more often than not, I wield my own sword.
So that makes sense. So, for me to say, Jesus Christ commands you to leave, I believe that that's real. So now I'm exuding this power. But if I said, Mr. Rogers commands you to leave, I would start laughing, and I don't believe it.
You wouldn't believe
it. So that
it.
doesn't give me the force.
Exactly.
Just say, I command you to leave.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've read the religious stuff, and you never say I. You're supposed to say, Jesus Christ commands you, because you don't have the power he has. Although he said, I've given you the power to repel these demons and stuff,
So I was actually raised in a. Oh, go ahead, Jenny. Did you have a question? I know Jenny had a question.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to get back to from your childhood that you had these experiences about being taken aboard a starship as a child. I wanted to see how that happened and what did you experience?
Oh, okay. So my earliest memory with that whole experience was, for whatever reason, I would stay up really late and watch Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know. Like 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't know. Whatever. That's just what it was. And I remember I would go to bed and I would have this, and it wasn't always Unsolved Mysteries. It was just sometimes just whatever, right? But I would go to sleep and I would have this eerie feeling that I was being watched. And this was from the earliest days of my life. I felt like I was being watched, to the point where if I was alone, I would feel like it would feel like my ears were perking up. Like, I'm not even kidding. It would be this really eerie kind of feeling, or daunting feeling, maybe is a better word. And so one night I went to sleep and I felt as if I was being literally like taken, like lifted up, like actually taken. And I saw these gray beings. And I remember trying to yell and scream, but I couldn't. There was no voice. There was no sound that would come out. Mm-hmm. But it was like, and so that was the scariest part, was that I couldn't yell for help, but nothing actually happened other than the sheer shock of like, okay, who are these beings? What are they doing? Now I understand what their function is in my life, 20 whatever years later. But back then I would be taken, we would go onto a ship. There was the Grays, the gardeners, let me say it like that. They were very kind of nonchalant, no emotion. But what they were doing at that time was helping me get to this point now where I could actually be biologically ready to transmit this frequency that I call cosmic frequency. So that was as a child, but I've also woken up in my adult life, and I had a tractor beam beaming on me just a couple of years ago. That was absolutely fascinating. And the craziest part was I drew the picture of that a couple of days prior, but didn't connect the dots until the experience. So I could talk about that if you want me to a little bit, the tractor beam.
Yeah. What is that?
So what's the tractor beam?
Yeah. Was it just what is that?
So, just in traditional Hollywood movies, and you see the UFO, like look at the
beam
photo
of light.
Yeah, like on John's background, the little beam. So a couple of years ago, I was out on the back deck and I was deep in meditation, and I felt this contradictory, beautiful energy, right, compared to what I felt as a kid, but beautiful ambiance all around me. I'm really sensitive to electronics, so at this point, I couldn't feel the electronics. I couldn't feel the Wi-Fi or anything. It was very clear energy. So I'm scared to death of the Grays. We'll talk about that, why you don't need to be. That's a good one. We'll talk about why you don't need to be in their role. So I feel this energy, and I open my eyes out of the meditation, and all around me is this silverish, greenish, bluish hue, about 6 to 8 feet in diameter, all around me. And I'm thinking, well, there must be car headlights shining on me from, off this side of the road or something. So I'm just sitting there kind of like minding my own business. And I'm like, wow, this car is here for a long time. So I turn around and it's pitch black. There's no car. So I'm like, oh, what's going on? So I look up and there's this huge orb just hovering. I don't know how many feet, but close enough to say that it was big. And it was just kind of this bluing, pulsing light. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is my family. They're gonna, off I go, But as I got excited, it started to kind of shrink and get smaller and smaller and smaller. The green silverish light vanished, and the experience was done. Come to find out through a series of events, I myself and others on this planet, we really do have protection. And there are drones from our star family who follow us around and check in from time to time. So I feel like that's what that was. And the reason that they look blue and shiny and orby is because their crystalline engines heat up the atmosphere around the ship or the drone so much that it starts to augment the localized reality and giving it this kind of bluish hue. So that's why starships glow and they seem like these like orbs, but they're really just, nuts and bolts and things like that too.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So they come visit you all the time or just on occasion?
No, I've been visited quite often. My dreams are very, very vivid and lucid. I met one of my Arcturian guides through dream space, an astral projection experience or out of body experience. But I also feel like I've met them physically too, but I didn't know it at the time until I had to put a few pieces of, the puzzle together. Because like I said, ETs are people. They're not always grays. They're not always, like what we've been accustomed to believing. We have to understand that extraterrestrial only means not on this planet. But if I go to Venus or Jupiter, am I not the extraterrestrial? Or wouldn't you be? So it's all relative, you see? So we have to switch that narrative and get out of this like disconnect from our stellar origins. It's actually imperative to the human advancement.
Why do you think Joe shouldn't be afraid of the grays?
Because first, I love the honesty. There's a race of beings called the gardeners. So you do have negative grays, but then you have gardeners or the Zeta Reticuli, and their job are to sometimes they get contracted by other star races to abduct or upgrade the human biological vessel to receive higher frequencies. So sometimes what they do is they will abduct you and they're just kind of poke and prod, but not to hurt or harm, but it's literally like trying to upgrade your consciousness so that you can receive more information about your stellar self and the universe and all the fun stuff. So please tell me my fears are unfounded. They are. It's just from a lack of knowledge. It's from propaganda and subtle mind control from three-letter agencies, forced to make you fear, the cosmos, essentially. Everything goes back to the stars, in my opinion.
Okay, but God gave us free will. It's funny. I did a term paper on predestination, free will in 10th grade, and I couldn't come to a conclusion. But the more I looked at religion and at least Christianity, God gave Adam and Eve free will on day 6, but their first day. So we have free will. But these things come and they take, let's say, a female, and they come back over and over again, and you can't stop it. To me, that's a form of kidnapping, slavery, rape. When you read the stories, unless that's just a small section of these malevolent ones.
Yeah, so I would say a small section of the malevolent, but also this is very layered, because we also have to understand in which religion was founded on, one, and then actually three now, is that we have to start thinking in trinary code, so binary, this or that, hot or cold, right or wrong. We can have two seemingly opposing ideas, seem like they're contradictions, but they actually complement each other. So what do I mean by that? With these people having these seemingly negative experiences, not the small portion that really are benevolent beings or doing nasty things, but the other group who, like Brother John here said, was in fear, that does not come from truly something trying to hurt you, but a lack and understanding of what is going on. Now, who's to say that 85, 94% of the people who are abducted don't already have a contract before they came to this planet, before they incarnated here, that said, hey, whenever I turn 24, upgrade my consciousness or whatever it is, we are so much more than just what's happening on this earth. And some of us have come in here but forgotten our stellar or celestial mission. And so whenever these things are happening to us from a linear point of view, a very small point of our consciousness, we feel like something bad is happening. But it's because perhaps we've forgotten that we have agreed to on some level to have said experience. It's not always like that. That's just another angle to view things from.
That's
Okay.
deep. So how do you feel about that, John?
Well, I'm sitting there thinking that, what you're saying, if I was a Hindu or Buddha or one of these other religions that believes in reincarnation and the Eastern philosophy of recycling, and you just keep coming back, like the Mayans, a lot of believe that. The Christianity faith is more a linear.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reincarnation. It's this is your only
One and
shot.
done. That's what they say.
It's one and done.
Yeah.
So it's different than a Christian would be saying, well, wait a minute, that's really not what I believe or been taught and what Jesus has said.
Well, it's interesting. I think this will help a lot of people who are in that position of perhaps they're hearing me speaking and something within them is feeling not triggered in a negative sense, but like, oh, I never thought of it like that, right? So here's a background. If I were to take off my shirt, I have a huge cross tattoo on my back, right? Because I was raised Christian. I was raised Christian all throughout my childhood. So I'm very familiar with the Bible. I'm very familiar with the ways in which that doctrine programs the mind. And this is what I want to say in the most humble but respectful way. From my own personal experience, I found it too limiting for the experiences I was having. I asked the pastor, hey, what are these dreams I'm having about these different beings? What's happening in my everyday life where I'm seeing, shadow beings walk across, the living room? Why can't anyone explain this to me? So for me, religion fell short to explain the supernatural whenever it was outside of the scope that it wanted people to think from. So once I expanded beyond that, I could now look back and see religion as a catalyst in some ways versus a end all be all. Do you see what I'm saying? So religion, especially Christianity, is a very compartmentalized framework of reality.
Now, but do you ever think that you're being tricked? For the devout Christian, he would say, my way is the way, the word and the way. And you are being deceived right now. And it's actually coming from the devil, that all these other, because that's how they view Eastern philosophy and Buddhism, Hindu, all of them, multi-gods, all of these different things, reincarnation, that you are actually being deceived. Because the Bible does say people will be deceived. They will believe things that aren't true. There'll be false prophets, all of that. So do you ever think that maybe you've been tricked to leave Christianity behind and believe this new way of thinking?
I have thought that many times over, but I also understand my direct experience with what some would call God, which contradicts a lot of the things that I grew up learning. But for me, it's about, what am I feeling? What do I feel inside? Right now, I want to do this little thought experiment. Everyone here knows a fork, right? The fork is a fork. Before someone told us that was a fork, we didn't know that. We believe it because someone told us it, right? So when we look at religion, most religion is founded on ancient experiences that were confiscated, put into certain texts and scripts to, dare I say, control the masses. And there's plenty of hidden history on this that isn't taught in the mainstream, right? This is a lot of my work is controversial, but only controversial to the ones who may not want to look outside of their framework. So we know what we know about Christianity and all religions because someone told us it. But what happens if no one is told anything? What happens if no one has a book, a Quran, a Torah? What happens if someone just sits by a river and listens to the birds and stares at the sun in the night sky? What religion would they follow? There wouldn't be one. They would be one with God, the source, essentially. They would naturally unfold their consciousness. What I'm saying is, on a religious context, we know what we know from religion because someone told us that, not because we have directly experienced it from our own unfolding of consciousness. So it's two different things.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're saying, that sounds more like the Native Americans. They believed in all these spirits. They had a spirit god for everything: the water, the rain, the wind, all of that, because they were in tune, with nature. And but what we've been told, let's say as a Christian, that came from from Jesus, that came from the patriarchs, those people, from the Torah and stuff. Yeah, so we were told that, but supposedly we were told that through the Word of God, inspired through them or directly through Jesus. So that's the one that counts.
What if I told you there's more to the story that that most people have never heard when it comes to Jesus? I mean, I have videos on this, and the hidden or the unseen aspects of Jesus that was more of a Roman engineered propaganda tool to try to sway the Palestinians of those ancient times. And this is history that they're not going to teach you, because here's the thing. It's a beautiful thing, though. Liberation is a dog on a leash, right? Liberation is, you can follow these 10 rules. You can do this, but you can't do that. Freedom, true freedom, is no leash. The dog is being, right? Yeah. The eagle, the fox, its ethos, it is one with nature. It doesn't have a religious context, right? And so what I would love to propose, take it or leave it, is allow your consciousness to see what it would be like to expand beyond a traditional framework, because then these supernatural and paranormal extraterrestrial experiences make much more sense, because they're not rooted in fear anymore. What I learned from my experience with religion is that anything outside of the Holy Spirit was evil. But why? Right? Why? The kid, the child, the innocent, they say the truth will be heard from the mouth of the babe. Ask why. But a lot of things quell the curious mind. And that, to me, speaks to a control mechanism, a liberation, not a freedom, not a God that wants its children to say, to truly be free, right? So this, just food for thought.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I started to redate a woman about a month or so ago that I dated 10 years ago. I haven't seen her. And at the time she had been a Christian, but in the 2 dates that we had, all she talked about was there's another side to the Jesus story. He's not what you think, and she started sending me these YouTube, videos and stuff. And, my experiences, though, I had a demonic entity in the house, and it took me 4.5 years to get it out, 3.5 years. And, and I became a reborn Christian, and, I believe in the power of his name and my belief system. And I do not want to blaspheme. So, so I actually told her, look, she sent me these. I said, look, I'm not going to look at them, because I believe what I believe, and I have a very strong reason, why I believe it. And, and that's why I said to her, I think you're being tricked. I think you're being tricked. And who does the tricking? The devil does the tricking, like he does the tricking with telling you about evolution. Is evolution true, or are we here 6,000 years? Because evolution's purpose is to prove that God didn't create us, so there's a lot of things I look at with a different set of eyes now. The archaeology and all of that, where they find a discovery. I just saw something online that here are these footprints in Mexico, and they're 29,000 years old. Well, how do you really know that they're 20? But everything that science does is to further backdate, so the 6,000 date of creation is not real. So I'm very I protect myself because of my experiences, which were very demonic. I mean, I was battling for my soul, and it got to a point where I thought, this is it. Something's going to happen, and it's happening right now. I was shrouded in blackness. And I again said, Jesus Christ commands you to leave. I command you to leave in Jesus Christ's name. And I made one extra comment that actually ended it that night when I said, you stood in the presence of God and you rejected him. And then all of a sudden, all the noises stopped. This veil of darkness lifted up about this quickly, just lifted up like that. Boom, the light came in, moonlight and all that, and it was gone. Wasn't permanently gone, but it was going to launch an attack on me. There was no doubt in my mind what was going. So, I maybe other people would be more open-minded, and I don't want to, say anything for the audience that's listening, but for me, I would, and it's the same issue I have with UFOs. I don't want to say something like, if I do a TV show, I'm not going to say aliens created us, aliens upgraded us. I'm not going to say anything that blasphemes the creation story or what Jesus said, because I got this firsthand experience where I'm just,
Well,
I'm not.
Thank you for sharing that. Jenny, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to go, because I didn't want to go too much into it. We only have 8 more minutes left. I don't want to talk everything about religion, but going back to the star people. So you consider yourself a star person?
Are you asking if I do? Yes, very much so. Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so you believe that you were put here for a specific reason, to educate humanity? Is that right?
So I think that, if you plant a watermelon seed, the seeds don't turn into watermelon, right? So I think the more that I listen to my inner compass and follow my own inner experiences and spend time in nature, yes, I certainly feel like I'm here to bring something unique for those who have eyes to see and, hearts to feel. I don't believe it. I know that, it's something that is undeniable. And so, yeah.
So do star people, do they actually have a craft, or do they travel metaphorically, through their soul? Is it soul travel, or do they actually get into a craft?
It could be both. So when we're thinking of star people, think of people, right? So we have cars, but we can also just I can sit and meditate and think about walking down the road, right? But they definitely have starships, that they definitely have starships. Not all of them can do things like teleportation and like that, but because those are all attributes of an advanced soul. Just because you're an ET doesn't mean you have an advanced soul or an advanced consciousness. And just because you're on Earth doesn't mean you have a limited consciousness either. It has nothing to do with your location. It has everything to do with your own progression of mind. That's the key to everything, is how expanded can you allow your consciousness to be? Can you face your fears? So yeah, they have crafts and much more.
Do you portal? Have you been through a portal? Did I hear that in one of your videos?
Yes, you probably did. So I teach ether physics. Which is the study of
what is that exactly, before we let you go?
Yeah, it's all good. So it's the study of consciousness. It's the study of or you could call me an ontologist, which is the study of the frameworks of reality. So I spend time within meditation and reflecting upon the deepest levels of reality. And through that, I've come to understand what time really is, what gravity really is. None of these things are what we're taught. And through that, you do come to understand portals in how a location is just a frequency, right? So nothing's separate physically, it's separated through frequency. And this is really high level stuff I talk about in the academy and things like that.
Well, let me ask you something that happened to me just today. Okay. I journal every day. And then I found some journals that behind my chair that I sit at and journal from a couple years ago. And I went back and read to this very date. And I was very confused because, I mean, something so stupid is not stupid, but so menial as I got a new bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I, in my brain, thought it was like 3 years ago. And it was only last year. So I'm really confused about that because they go by the date in my journal. Yeah. I'm like, what did I do? Did I lose 3 years? I sat there for like 15 minutes trying to figure this out.
So time is not what we see on the clock. Time is not, numbers. Time is your awareness, your state of awareness. So for example, if you have to go to the bathroom really, really bad, but I'm in the bathroom, for me, it doesn't seem like, I've been in there for, a couple seconds. For you, it might feel like 5 minutes because your perception of the experience is different than my perception of the experience. Even though the time might be the same, the perception is what changed. So you have developed your consciousness or been moving through life in the way that you have to where you have accumulated the feeling of 3 years.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's everything with the mind and your perception. It has nothing to do with the numbers on the clock. You can speed up.
It just freaked me out.
Yeah.
I thought it was like something like the Mandela effect or something. Like, wait a minute. How can this be? I bought this bed a while ago, but how could it only be a year ago to the day? It's like, I'm still baffled.
Yeah, it could have been the Mandela effect too. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The more that we can let go of our rigid belief systems and structures, the more access we have to how things are actually functioning in our lives and in our awareness. And the more these things not only become really cool to experience, but you learn how to control them too. You become more than just a man or woman. You start to advance your soul. That's what life is really about.
How long do you meditate for a day? Would you say?
It depends. I can meditate. I can set my alarm for 3 minutes. I can really tune in and shift my brain waves and then have really cool experiences. Or I can sit there for 20 minutes or an hour. It just depends. But life has become a meditation. I can say that quite honestly. I live in a way, I'm not perfect at all, but I do have a way of decoding reality and being able to articulate things, from these deep states of meditation. So, meditation's ongoing. We're meditating right now. You just don't know it.
Krys, I had a thought a while ago, because I try to figure out what this UFO thing is, and you see them. Sometimes they just dematerialize, they go away. But I was thinking about dimensions and and action heroes like Superman. So I said, well, when they come through, I don't know what they do on their planet, but when they come through to our physical reality, we have laws of physics that they have to follow. And I don't believe that they're like Superman that can just fly from here to Moscow or something, So would they need a craft, the UFO, only in our dimension? That's how they have to get around. So angels and demons are actually in UFOs moving around unless God can take them and actually send one right into my house, like transported. But once it's here, it can't just on its own go to Moscow or Paris, So what do you think about that? Could it actually be that all of these interdimensionals in our dimension need a craft?
I don't think anyone needs a craft if they understand what they truly are. So John, you don't even need a craft. If you wanted to, you could get to a point where you could blink and phase out and get to Moscow with just your mind. That's a very real thing.
Well, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the yogis used to practice this, and these things, they save this for science fiction, but this is not science fiction. This is all about understanding what a soul truly is as an aspect of the source or the greater reality. So you don't need a craft. ETs don't need a craft either. When they're in this, when they come to Earth, don't think of Earth as in 3D. Think of Earth as just a planet. Think of Jupiter as a planet. The people that come here, they're still people. They have 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, a head, families, right? Their technology is based in, ironically, what I teach is ether physics and understanding these fundamental aspects of reality. So how do they blink in and blink out? They phase shift, and they know how to shift the vibrations of their craft to be in different locations. So this is all high level science, you could say, but consciousness, science, and technology are really one organism that when you understand them, you can do amazing things. So.
Oh, it's a great conversation. I want to thank you so much, Krys, for coming on Chasing Prophecy. Thank you, John, for co-hosting. Next time, give me a heads up and I'll send you the link.
Yeah. I guess I can't use last week's link. It don't work.
It changes every
week. Okay.
Yeah, it changes every.
Are we out of time already, Jenny?
Yeah, we're out of time.
Wow. Okay. See.
Well, how do people find? How do they find you, Krys? Where do they go?
So Instagram, Cosmic Frequency is my Instagram. There's no second E in the word frequency. So it's frequency and the second E's not there because the ether is invisible. It's a whole thing. Or my website, my website is cosmicfrequency.org and my email is krys@cosmicfrequency.org. So
we'll have to have you back on.
Yeah, we'll jump on again and yeah, we'll do it again. Awesome to talk to people from Pittsburgh again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
Come back.
Yes. Be well.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for joining us, everyone, on Chasing Prophecy. Make sure you share the link, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.